Hi, guys, and welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, I have Angie with us today. Angie's a passionate life coach on a mission. She specializes in reigniting the faded dreams of middle of life women, breathing fresh life into their aspirations. I know this for a fact because she helped me. She's a medical intuitive, tapping into the world of energy healing, a self-professed personal development geek. I feel you. Angie always has her nose in a book, enrolling in courses and soaking in the wisdom of retreats. She firmly believes age is just a number when it comes to learning and growth. So I'm excited for her to share her journey of divorce and where she's at now. So welcome, Angie. So glad you're here.
For having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Well, Angie and I have known each other for a while. We got connected a little bit more after my divorce when we were like, let's commiserate.
Sure.
Help. I mean, I really, sadly, I really looked to my friends who had been through this, before me to be like, help. What do I do? So, Angie, tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up even getting divorced,
Okay. Well, without making it too long,
Yes.
I was married for 24 years, and there had been a lot of years that were not happy.
Yeah.
At one point, my 12-year-old daughter said, "I wish you and Dad would just get divorced. I hate the two of you together."
Wow.
Well, it ended up being like 10 years later that happened. My oldest was off to college, and my youngest was getting ready to graduate from high school, and she was going to move out. And all of a sudden,
Oh,
I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm going to be stuck here alone with him." And that was the moment I decided
oh,
it was.
okay.
I didn't know until I knew, and that was the defining
Yeah.
moment.
And, I think there's a lot of people who think about that. I know I thought about it, especially in the years that were bad, where I was like, am I going to spend the rest of my life with him by myself? And he doesn't even like me and I don't even like him. Like, how are we going to do this? But some people do, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say it took me a long time
Oh yeah.
to get to that point.
Oh sure.
My ex was a narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if it's funny or interesting. I don't think I had never heard that word
Yep.
until after I decided to get divorced. And I had just shared with, it
A
was kind of a
friend.
stranger. I was at an event
Oh,
and said something, and she goes, "Oh, he's a narcissist." And I'm like, "No, he's not." But I didn't even know what a narcissist was.
right. I know, me either. Like I hadn't heard this word, and then now I'm like, I have a degree in it or something. You know what I mean? Like
Right? Oh, yeah.
it's so crazy how we know when we know, when it's our time, because our time to hear it. Because I remember I was talking to a friend, we had done a class on codependency, and she goes, yeah, and we did that whole chapter on narcissism. And I said, we did? And she said, yeah, I don't remember that at all. Like, I don't remember that. And it's so interesting to me. I just wasn't meant to hear it yet. I
Yeah.
just wasn't,
You
what
weren't ready.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all. So tell me about how you guys got together. Really, for me, I can see like patterns from childhood and stuff like that. So tell us all your stories.
Okay.
Tell us about your
Well,
life.
here, let me get comfortable. Um, I had always wanted to be married and have kids. I
Yeah.
thought that's just what you did. You graduated from high school and
Yeah.
got married and had kids.
Yeah.
Why I thought that, I don't know. I think it was just something that was maybe programmed in or modeled for
Yeah.
me.
Society too, for sure.
I never did very well with dating, didn't date a whole lot. And then I had met uh, my ex through my sisters. They were
Oh, okay.
roommates. So to this day, I blame her.
Whoops. Sorry.
So no, I really don't.
I know.
Um,
Poor sister.
and so I went to spend the weekend with her, and he basically pursued me all weekend long.
Wow.
And I was actually kind of afraid. So my sister and her soon to be husband had, he had a child from a previous marriage. So
Okay.
my was two. And so I'm like, let me babysit him. Don't send him to daycare. So I wanted to have some way to
Somebody to
avoid.
protect you.
And so after I went back home, I worked for the airlines at the time. And can I say his name?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Just call him your ex.
My ex
Yeah.
said, oh, he found me. I don't even know how he found me in this department that I was in. And he had sent me flowers, and then he started communicating with me. And then he invited me to go on vacation with him for a week. And
Like right away, he's asking you to
right
go
away. Yeah. And so I went because I'm thinking, well, if it's horrible, I work for the airlines. All I have to do is get on a plane and leave. And my
Yes, exactly.
sister she didn't say anything about, like that he was a horrible person.
Right. She
So
didn't know.
it just kind of went on from there. And it was a year later, we ended up getting married. I mean, he proposed to me at the airport once when I was leaving Southern California to
Wow.
go back to Denver. And
Like really soon, like after you guys started
probably
dating, or
6 months, maybe
okay.
6 months in or so.
And did this feel kind of fast to you, or no, or you just felt like swept off your feet?
I kind of felt swept off my feet because he was always very attentive. And like when I would come out to California to visit, he would, we'd go to Disneyland or we'd do all these super fun things. And I remember the first, when I was getting ready to go on vacation with him, we were driving from Orange County to Palm Springs, and we stopped somewhere, and I was telling him all kinds of stuff about my past and things that I did. And then I never felt judged by him.
Okay.
At the time.
Okay.
And so,
I was going to say, well, sure.
Right.
It's the beginning.
Yeah. So yeah, lessons you learn from a narcissist, right?
That's
So
that's a red flag, people. They'll use the information
it's
against
a
you
big red
later.
flag.
They'll use it against you later.
Yes. So he just made me feel loved and comfortable. And so, he said he wanted the same things. And so it just seemed, like the right thing to do.
Right. And then were your parents married?
They were.
Okay. So you came from a home where your parents were married. Now,
they didn't
were your parents, I was going to say, were your parents happy? There is a difference.
I shouldn't say they didn't like each other.
Okay.
I think my dad loved my mom more than the other way around.
Okay.
She had her own drama.
Right.
So
right.
My parents kind of got married quickly. I don't know if I should go into too much detail, but anyway, they got married. She had a child, and he had 2 children from a previous marriage. So they kind of, he needed a wife and mother, and she needed a husband. And so that's kind of how they ended up getting together. But I think my mother expected life to be different. That, she would get married to this man and he would buy her some big mansion and do all these different things. And it didn't quite work out that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Financially, my parents weren't well-to-do.
Right.
And we grew up in a small farming community back in Colorado. So like I said, it was just kind of modeled to me there also about, you stay someplace where you're not even happy. I remember my mom telling me for a lot of years, if I had to do it all over again, I never would have gotten married.
Wow. And I know that I have people I've talked to who maybe have just left an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship. And they say, I don't want to end up like my mom. She got divorced 25 years ago and she's still bitter. And, it's like, I know that we can get stuck in that place if we don't go off and heal. Like if we don't really make it a point to heal.
Right. Yeah. So
My gosh.
Yeah, when I finally decided to get divorced, that it was my idea, but it took a bit of time. I didn't work for 24 years. Basically, I mean, we
Okay.
had a business, but I didn't work
Right.
full
Outside.
time in it. I
Yeah.
took care of my kids.
Right.
So then it's like, oh, well, I have to get a job. And what am I going to do? Because he wasn't going to move out. So I'm like,
Right.
well, I can't keep staying here if we're getting divorced. Maybe financially it would have been beneficial, but I'm like, oh my God, I can't
Yeah.
do this because,
I don't want to be near his stupid face. Yeah, I
well,
get it.
no, because he had already started, he was dating somebody else while we were still married.
Oh my Lord in heaven. So I mean that God, so that's hard, right? At least mine had the decency to hide it. God.
Well, he hit it. I have to say, he had multiple affairs
Okay.
that I ended up knowing about. Another red flag.
So was this during your marriage that you found out about it, the affairs, or was this
Yeah, I
after?
knew about a couple of them, but then
Oh,
when I
okay.
decided to get divorced, then
Mm.
everybody kind of came out and said,
Oh,
"Oh, he's been doing this
oh my
since before
gosh.
you got married." And he mostly men knew, I think a few women, but nobody really ever said anything
Okay.
because he made it sound like it was okay. He told people I didn't like sex and I was fine with him stepping out as long as it was 50 miles away and we don't talk about it.
This random this
Right,
random story he made up.
right,
Angie doesn't mind as long as I'm 50 miles out of town.
right. But he's the type, he's very charismatic. So he could sell you beachfront property in the middle of the desert and you'd move in and you go, where the beach? Where's the beach? And you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never said there was a
I
beach.
never promised you that. So, okay, so you knew about some of them during your marriage and he said he was sorry or he didn't
No,
know.
he never said he was sorry. But I
Okay.
always just assumed because I was so upset and devastated, he wouldn't do that again.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I knew of three of them, I think. And then towards the end, then he was
Okay.
seeing somebody else. And this was kind of about the same time that my daughter was getting ready to graduate and move out. And then I had found out about this other woman, and that's it. I
Right.
can't, I can't do this
You can't
anymore.
keep doing it. And that's when you were ready. When you were ready, when you
Yeah.
were ready.
Yeah.
So along the way, where do you feel like you were abandoning yourself? Like just being not okay. You weren't okay with the affairs, but you just assumed he's going to stop. He obviously is going to stop because I'm upset and those kinds of things.
Right.
What other things did you feel like you put up with or you abandoned yourself and just
Oh,
allowed or
I probably abandoned myself most of the marriage.
yeah.
Um, because he did a lot of gaslighting, he would give me like these backhanded compliments, or we'd have fights and I'd, say I wanted to leave. And he's like, well, good luck with that. How are you going to make the amount of money that I make? And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, just like, oh, he's right. What am I going to do? And I had two kids. So I'm like, I'm
Right.
going to have to get 6 jobs just in order to, take care of them. And I loved being with my kids and I homeschooled. And
Right.
I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I can't support us. And then I would never see my kids. And
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if maybe he would fight and try to take the kids away from me
Right. I
because
remember
I wouldn't put it past him.
well, yeah.
Um,
I mean, even if they don't want the kids, they still want to fight for them, I hear, a lot of times. Um, I remember when I was in counseling at the end and she says, "What are you going to do for money and where are you going to live?" And I said, "I don't know and I don't care." And she said, "Oh, you're ready to leave." I go, "Yeah." Because it does get to that point, where you just are, I'm done. I'm worth more than this. I'm worth more than him treating me this way, the gaslighting, the constant just rudeness, all those things. And then the girlfriend, I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, one more time. I'm going to ask you to stop one more time. And no. um, you and I were talking before, we had talked about like where divorce and options for women seem to be a lot more easily accessible. They say like 70% of women, is it? No, 70% of divorces are now initiated by women. And I think it's different than like say our parents' generation, right?
Right.
We have more options. Number one, if we're working on our self-worth, we both are kind of like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I don't care where I'm living
Right.
or what I'm doing with my life. And, the options for women as far as we don't need somebody, we don't need a man to help us get a credit card or a bank account or, like it was
Right.
like just in the 70s, you know what I mean? It's so ridiculous. So what I want to kind of skip over to this. When you're working with women and you're saying how you're working with like women, like me, that I felt like I really was like in a midlife crisis. I'm like, Angie, what do I do? But you helped me to dream and you helped me to dream up this podcast. Thank you. But you helped me to dream. So tell me about the kinds of things like that you help women do, especially those of us like me that are stuck in a midlife, almost like a crisis.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, it took a bit of time to get here. I tried a few different things, and
Yeah.
then I started seeing more and more women our age, over the age of 50, getting divorced.
Yeah.
And, you're not expecting that at all. I just assumed the rest of my life would
Right.
be, I would
This, yeah.
I would be married and I would have family over and do the holidays and I would
Yeah.
have grandkids. And then all of a sudden that got, ripped out from underneath me, even
Right.
though I'm the one who did it. But
Well, right.
now it's like, what do I do? So I tried a bunch of different things, took courses. Um, and then I realized I don't even have a dream for myself.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I didn't want to be like my mom. Both my parents lived to be 87, but my mom
Okay.
was very unhappy and,
Yeah.
didn't really pursue anything. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So
Right.
I was 54 when I got divorced. And I'm like, that's still a lot of years
Yes.
to do something.
Yes.
And then it just kind of started with, I'd always wanted to do this journal. Not, I shouldn't say always. So for about 2 years, wanted to do this journal uh, for women called Creating Your Future Self.
Hmm.
Why I wanted to do it, I don't know. It was just something that was put on me, but it
Right.
took me a while to do it. And so I kind of started messy and I got it finished just as a PDF form. And then the next round I did was getting it in a book form.
It's
I
so
got it up
pretty. It's
on
so
Amazon.
pretty.
Can I show it?
Yes, you can. I love it. It's so pretty. Yes, and you guys, we'll have all the information in the show notes, but it's a great journal to like walk you through just some prompts. And even if you're not a journaler, you can at least do the prompts and kind of work on stuff.
Right. Well, just through all the stuff that I learned, I had to start figuring out, okay, what do I like? What
Yeah.
do I want to do? Because I always did what he wanted to do and
Yeah.
ate the foods he wanted. And so it kind of started, I had just from different courses too, like, where am I right now? What's my
Yeah.
life look like? And I had to get really honest,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I'm living here. I'm doing this. I'm not making a ton of money. I don't have a man in my life. I'm,
Yeah.
whatever it was. So
Right.
started from there, then started, okay, what do I want? What do I
Yeah.
want to dream about now?
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that are in the
Oh,
journal.
okay.
But it does help to write those things down instead of just thinking about it. You start writing and it
Yes.
kind of comes out,
Mhm.
and things that maybe you didn't even know were there.
That's one of the things I noticed. And I was talking with a friend. I said, I am very much, talk out loud. I've been talking to myself. Sounds funny, but I've been talking to myself this last year after my divorce because I literally will go in the mirror and go, I'm really proud of you today. You did a great job. You're doing a great job. I like the way you got out of bed, because there are days where it's so shitty that you're just like, I don't know how to even function.
Right.
But pepping talking myself up, pepping myself up. But just I was driving in the car a couple of days ago and I just decided no music, no nothing. And I started talking to God, and I kind of started talking out loud about dreams I have and stuff like that. And there's something about it, right? That when you speak it, it just really brings it to life.
Right.
Even if you don't know what you want, right? Because I mean, this is how, when you and I were in a session, literally how the podcast happened. Because I said something to you and then I go, oh, wait, is that something? And this is what I want to tell people. Doesn't matter. It didn't make any sense to me, but I wrote it down because I said, is that something? And I wrote it down.
Right.
I don't know. I didn't know what it was, but it was a piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And it's like I had to put it all together with that.
Well, and it was one of those, it was just an odd thing to show up for you, right?
Right.
And I think even myself, just what do I want to dream about? And some of it, I didn't want to stop myself. And I don't want
Yeah.
other women to stop either and go, oh, I can't afford that. I can't do that. That's not possible. If it comes to mind, just write it down. You don't have to know the
Yeah.
how. You just have to
Yeah, the
know,
whole thing, right.
right.
And
And
and I
just
think
makes you smarter.
what you were saying about how he didn't really, give you that space to dream. And I was in the same position because when I came to you, I was like, I want to dream again. I don't even know why I'm saying that, but I just haven't dreamt because I had lots of dreams, except that he would go, no, you can't really dream that. You can't do that. You can't do this, because he was just trying to make me as small as possible to the point where I left. And congratulations, I did it. And so you got your way.
Right.
But when if we are in if we are in a life where we don't even feel like we can dream, then
Mhm.
it's hard when you're in in a relationship maybe, or whatever. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a marriage. I guess if you're in a family environment where people are just like, no, you can't, I wouldn't do that. Well, we
Right.
have to think about when people say, well, I wouldn't. I don't know how many people said to me, oh, I could never start a podcast. Okay, then don't start one.
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and I got a lot of that from my mom. She would
okay.
rain on my parade. I'd be all excited about something, and at the time, and I didn't
Yeah.
she would just stomp it down. Oh, that can never work. How are you ever going to do that? You didn't go to school. You didn't do this. You didn't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
And after a lot of work and healing, realized, like I said, she had her own trauma drama,
Right.
and
Yes.
she never worked through it, but she was trying to protect me by saying that. She didn't do it to be cruel or mean, but
Right.
too, that's what I was modeled, not to dream.
Yeah. And
Um,
I know our parents or maybe even our friends mean well, like they don't want us to get hurt or whatever, but I just so firmly believe in there's life outside of our comfort zone. Doesn't mean you have to start a podcast. It means that if there's a dream in your heart, God put it there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like
right,
you thought of this, whatever it is, you thought of the journal or whatever it is, or you want to help women. There's a reason you want to do that. And
right.
so, like be thinking of that. And so just really, I guess journaling is a good place for people to start writing it down, like you said. And
Right.
then like, what do you recommend? I know for me, it's like I write it down, but then I often look at it, and then even just in my quiet time, just think, okay, what could this be? What happened? Like, I don't know. What do
Right.
you think?
Well, I think even like with you, you had the idea of the podcast, didn't know how it was going to
Yeah.
happen, but it was put on your heart. And then all of a sudden things just start showing up. And like I said, you
Yes.
don't have to know the how of what you're going to do.
Right.
Just go for the why, visualize what it is that you want to do. How are you going to
Yeah.
feel, when you create this
Okay.
podcast, when you're doing, um, getting people to come, how's it going to feel to have this up for the first time? I mean, I know you
Yes.
were really excited at
Yes.
first, but if you can start visualizing and just feeling what it's like
Yeah.
to have those dreams, or say you want to travel, how are you going to do that? I don't know, but
Right.
visualize all the places you're going to go and how are you going to feel when you get
Okay.
to get there. And then the pieces just kind of start coming into place. And what's one action step you could take? I know before your trip to Paris, you're
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. I said, okay, figure out what it is that you want to do and what's the date that you want to go. Just pick one small little
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
and do that. And then the next inspired action usually will show up as to what to do. You don't have to know the whole big picture.
Because
Just
I definitely felt overwhelmed that way going, yeah, I'm going to go to Paris, but I don't know what that looks like. How do I even do it? All those things. And then you were like, get a notebook and just write one thing down.
right.
I was like, okay. So I did. I did. I wrote it down and I still have my little Paris notebook because I write down all the things I need to remember and stupid things like my passport. Because God, if I leave the house without my
Of course, that's not stupid. You really need that.
no, I know, but I mean, I'd be the person who leaves the house without the passport, but it's that kind of stuff. I was stressing myself out. And I remember you saying, just like, get a notebook and write it down, get it out of your brain and
Right.
just write it down. You know what I mean? Well, one of the things that I felt towards the end of my marriage, and I'm wondering how you were feeling, as hard as it was to stay in the marriage we stayed for a long time. We both stayed for a long time. Um, one of the things you and I talked about was that you just felt like you were going to die if you had to stay.
Right.
And I was there. So tell me, God, I don't know. Tell me about your thought process. Like, what were you feeling? And then did one particular thing happen, or did you just finally multiple things were just like, I gotta go?
Well, some of it I wasn't happy before, and I was going to a therapist,
Mm.
and she was great. And so she's
You-
going.
She wanted you to, yeah, tell that part from there. Yes.
I was going to see a great therapist, and I was getting ready to go to Hawaii the week before, and she said, just go to Hawaii and pretend
Oh,
like you're not married and just see how that feels.
okay. Almost
And
like a
then
trial separation, except did he know you were like trial
he,
separating?
no, he didn't know that. I was just going over to Hawaii
Yes.
to visit my sister.
Okay.
And so when I came home, I think it was the following day from Hawaii, he went to the session with me,
Okay.
and all kinds of stuff came up. I was sitting on the couch, and he was right beside me, and the therapist was over on the other chair.
Yeah.
And I was talking about sex and asked him if he was a sex addict. And he said, I've often wondered that myself.
What?
And basically said he wasn't going to stop doing all the things that he did. And I remember my therapist looking at me, and she goes, you know what to do, and just left it at that.
Yes.
And that was kind of the moment too. Then I'm like, yeah, I can't keep doing this. And then my daughter was moving out. But I remember standing in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the conversation I was having with him. But all of a sudden it just hit me, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck here with him. I can't do this anymore. But I didn't know what I was going to do.
Right. And you know what? And that seemed okay, right? Didn't that seem better than the alternative?
Oh yeah, I can't, because I felt like I was going to die if I stayed there, because I was so unhappy.
Well, and especially when he's blatantly saying, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. That it at some point, because they do that, right? This is another red flag where my ex was the same way. It's like they would do things, and then if you allowed it, they'd push a little bit more. You gave them an inch, they took a mile. Well, because that was us allowing it. But
because I never did anything about it.
Yes, exactly.
I said I was going to leave, and I didn't. So, he
Right.
might as well just continue doing what he's doing.
I was so thankful. I talked to my therapist last week, and I told her I hadn't had a chance to thank her, because last year there was a couple months where I was like, okay, I'm going to leave him this month. And then the next month I'd be like, well, I didn't leave him. I'm going to leave him this month, and she never shamed me. But she was always like, okay, well, when you're ready, she didn't say what your therapist said, but she was always like, when you're ready, it sounds like you've told him everything you need. Like, what? She was almost like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
But, they can't say that. They can't tell you what to do. They're
Well,
just
and that
there
was
to
like with
guide you.
mine. She didn't tell me what to do. She just looked at
Exactly.
me and said, "You know what to do." But I remember those two fingers
Pointing
pointing,
at you.
"You know what to do."
Isn't that so profound? I mean,
Oh, if for sure. Yeah.
so you had read, you had a book that there was a book resource. And tell me about when you read the book. Was it when when you spoke to that stranger? Was she
It
the
was
one who
after
Okay.
that because I started researching about narcissists and
Because after she said, "Oh, he sounds like a narcissist," or
right.
whatever.
And
Okay.
then I heard it a few other times and I'm like, okay, what is this? I better look this
No,
up.
isn't it funny? Like when we are meant to hear it, like that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, all of a sudden everything was gaslighting and narcissism. I'm like, where was all this information? All
Right.
of a sudden
Well,
it appeared.
and the book was called The Sociopath Next Door. And I actually think my therapist told me to read it. And
Okay.
I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about me.
Okay.
Because they give examples of, what people do. And I'm like, this is my life. This is
Okay.
the same stuff that he's doing to me.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
So that's a good resource. We'll put that in the
oh, for sure. Yeah.
comments for people who want to read more about it. And it gave information. It's not like a novel. It gave right. It gave information and about narcissism, gaslighting, those kinds of
Right.
things.
And it just kind of gave examples, like told stories of
Okay.
different people and what they did. It's been a long
Okay.
time since I read it, so I don't remember
Yeah, exactly.
everything. But I
Right.
just remember reading that and then like, oh my God, this is my life. They're were they watching me?
Right. Well, the good thing about that and why I wanted to do this podcast is I want people to know they're not alone because I felt very alone. I felt very embarrassed. I was ashamed. Um, how many people in this world have had their ex-husband or their husbands or ex-husbands have had affairs or whatever and lied to them, or any of those things? And I felt like an idiot. I almost felt like the only person
Oh,
in the world. Do you know what I mean?
oh, me too. I was embarrassed because, like I said, after I decided to divorce and people knew, then they started
Oh,
telling me,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, we knew he did this, and when we were in Jamaica, you should all the women." Oh, like, why are you telling me this? Like,
That's not it's so not helpful. I know people wanna help you, like, feel like you were right or whatever, but it's not helpful, and those things I know I'm doing a lot of work on this because of not caring what other people
mhm.
say or think or whatever, and they're off living their best life, my ex and his new wife now, they're off living their best life, but to see the way some people support them, it's like, God, oh
Oh,
god.
yeah,
Especially
that
after 33 years of crap, it's like, "Oh god."
that was hard too.
It
When people
Yeah,
that we were friends together,
yeah,
found out what he was doing, they stayed with him. Then
yeah,
I felt even more um, alone. But was
yeah.
interesting after I started sharing a little bit more with
Uh-huh.
people, how many women came and said, "Oh yeah, my ex-husband did that," or another friend said, "Oh, I had a girlfriend that was dating a guy for 2 years and then found out he had a wife and kids
Oh my gosh.
and had
Yeah.
like absolutely no clue." But I did contact a few or found out a
Okay.
few who a few of these women were and had conversation with them, and he told them a whole different story. you
Right.
know
Of
he
course.
pursued them and whatever the
Right.
the deal was.
Right. And and unfortunately, that's what they're doing,
Yeah.
So you look like the crazy person if you try to, I can't say anything because I'm the crazy ex-wife and
Yeah.
all the things I gave up on our marriage and all the things he said. And so that to me was really hard, like kind of the grieving process after that and feeling like what was real and what wasn't real in
Oh
our
yeah.
marriage,
Yeah.
And
I
so
wondered, was my whole entire marriage just a lie?
right.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of grieving to go along with that, but I didn't even know that at the time. I think I had to stop going to therapy because she didn't take insurance and
Okay.
whatever it was.
Right.
So just trying to figure it all out on my own.
Yeah.
I just wanted him to feel the pain that I was feeling. I had all these horrible thoughts about scratching his car and
Right.
flattening his tires. I
Oh, I
never
know.
did any of that,
No, I know.
um,
Oh God, that would have
but
been
to get
so
through all that,
satisfying.
and I had to realize I was grieving the loss of something I had for 24 years.
And
I
not
think
only that, I think grieving our future as well. That for me is what I felt, even though, okay, because you remember the good times, right? You
yeah,
remember the good times. And so when your brain is remembering the good times, I was like, I built this entire life. Like I sit there even now and go, I built this life for 33 years. And this girl, this bitch walks in and she gets, I don't know how long she'll last, but whatever. She gets to go do this stuff, and not like he was going to be nice to me or anything. And I have to remember that part. I was going to be miserable,
right.
but, I was building a future, with him. And that to me that was a really hard thing. That was part of my grieving as well. Not only, yes, I went through that. Was everything a lie? Someone, commented on one of my stories and I said, "Oh, try to remember this good thing or that good thing." And I said, "I really try, but we fought almost every day. Every day was a problem. Everything was a problem. And so it's hard to remember the good time, the Facebook highlights, because I can see behind the lens and be like, I was really sad that day.
Yeah.
He was
But
mean to
it
me."
was funny. People would say too, because we had a business and we did some traveling and we had
Okay.
a big event and we were in Mexico and doing all this. And people like, but you look so happy. Well, looks are totally deceiving. How can you not be happy when you're in Mexico at an
Right.
all-inclusive resort on the beach, drinking tequila with a bunch of friends?
Yes, exactly. No, and it's
Doesn't mean that I
true.
felt great inside. I was having a good time at that
Yes.
point. But
And those are things that people need to remember, because I did have a lot of people say, "Oh, you guys look like you had a perfect marriage." And I said, "Okay, well, no one has a perfect marriage. Like nobody does." And I've said, "It sure looks perfect on Facebook." And I said that to my therapist and she said, "Well, that's good for you that you didn't like put your business out there." Cause of course now I'm on a podcast and my therapist totally fully supports me. She knows exactly what I'm doing and she fully supports me because I'm allowed to tell my story and everybody else's story. But it's that of course everyone looks happy on Facebook, but we can't live off of that. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much you can live off of that. And so what kinds of things have you done? How long has it been?
it's been 9 years. Actually, I think is it this month? Well,
Wow.
not 9 years. It's been 9 years, but I had to get a job. So tomorrow it'll be 9 years
Oh,
that
okay.
I had my job because I don't know if I should say where I
Doesn't
got
matter.
have a job at.
Yeah.
Um,
At a
so I
at a grocery store. Yeah.
also work at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
But I'd always said that if I ever needed a job, I wanted to go to Trader Joe's. And as soon as I decided I'm going to get divorced, I went to Trader Joe's. And I think I always say that was just a God thing because that was the only place I went. And
That's
I
so
told the store
amazing.
manager, I said, I want to come work for you. And he said, bring me your application tomorrow. And I went in the next day and took my application. I was on my way to therapy. um,
My
I guess I
gosh.
must have still been seeing my therapist. So I was on my way to therapy and he goes, oh, let's go to the back and we'll talk a bit. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to like miss therapy and I can't call her because I'm in the
Wow.
middle of an interview. But that was on a Thursday and I started the following Monday. Um,
I just love that. Like it was just meant to be.
yeah,
And that's the thing is it might not have been your dream job, right? But it
no.
was it was something that was going to help you get out of your situation. So, what kinds of things did you do for healing after your divorce?
Mm, well, therapy was big. I took a course um, on narcissism
Oh, okay.
to, I can't like quite remember her name, Melanie
That's okay.
something or the other, but that helped. I took other courses, read books, just trying to find things that interested me.
Yeah.
Um, And also the job at the time was great because I was getting out with other people. I didn't have to
Yes.
think too much about uh, what was going on, and it just kind of all seemed to flow. Like I said, it took a few years. It took me quite a while to grieve because I just think, or get over. I shouldn't say grieve, but
Yeah.
to get over it. Um,
Or
I
move
even had a hard
forward
time
or
like looking at him, and I mean, my
yeah.
kids were still around, so still had to have some sort of interaction with him
I'm sorry.
at some point.
I hope to never have to have any interaction with him ever again.
Um,
Except when I show up in a red dress at his funeral. Oh my God, I said
right.
that out loud.
um, yeah, so I don't know, it just kind of seemed to, I don't know if I want to say natural progression, but like I said, it
Okay.
took me a few years
Yeah.
to get past that. Probably it took me like 5 years to
Mhm.
move past that because it was like, oh, how could he do this to me? And
Yeah.
I had
Well,
to
I mean,
change.
definitely there's always like that moving forward and then something will, knock you back down or whatever. Did you have people, trusted friends or anything that you were talking to at this time about it? Or were you not? I don't know. I don't remember you
I
talking
had
about.
a few friends because we're homeschooled, so there were some of
Okay.
people there, so I had support. But what was funny was a lot of people in that group said, "Thank God you're leaving him."
Seriously? Oh my gosh. They must have seen things. I mean, I wasn't that close with him, so I don't really know. I only know the charming side of him, so
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
so that was. So I
Wow.
did have support. I mean, people were there for me
Yeah.
um,
If you needed to talk about it or
to do
whatever.
that, and I
Okay.
don't know. All of a sudden, just one day, I'm like, I'm over him. I'm over all the stuff. I don't ever want to say that I regret,
Right.
marrying him.
Mhm.
Like my mom, if I had to do it all over again, I'd never get
Yeah.
married. Well, if you didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. Uh,
Well, and let's talk about that because, that's it, right? And I had posted that today, about how, shout out to my ex. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today.
right,
But
right.
it's true. Like our situations have created us, but it's what we do, right? And how we're
Mhm.
healing from it and things like that. Because we can stay stuck and bitter and go the rest of our life, you know, bitter, right? But I'd rather be better.
Right.
Better.
What was what the best form of revenge is being happy. I
Yes,
think I
it's
heard
a
that.
well-lived life or something.
Right.
Yes, exactly. One of the things that we talked about, and I jotted it down here, is the self-talk when we're going through our healing and trying to break patterns that we've
Mhm.
had in our life. Because I do see that, especially like for you staying 24 years, sometimes listen, sometimes when I'm talking to people and they were married for like a month or a year or something, I'm like, girl, I did 33. I'm trying to process. But there's a pattern. And I'm starting to like think about what are these patterns that I have had in my entire life. I haven't had that many boyfriends, but like I'm looking back and I'm going, oh God, I see a pattern.
Right.
Jeez Louise, Laura, get it together. But the self-talk, I like this. I don't know if you have that quote in front of you or what the kind of the things that we talked about before. If not, I'll just bring it up. It says, whose thoughts are you thinking?
Right,
Right?
because you can't always believe the thoughts that you have because they could totally be somebody else's. It could come from your mother or your father or the church, or a lot of those things are
Yes.
programmed into us from the time we're born till 8, 10 years old.
Yes.
And so unless you start questioning,
I love that.
your thoughts, you might be
Yeah.
thinking somebody else's thought. Like, okay, is that really true? Is that my thought? Or was that from somebody else? Is that somebody else's thought?
I love that. Like, is that really my thought? And one of the things I learned in therapy was, is it true? Is it not true? Is it somewhat true? Right? Like
Mhm.
whose thoughts are we thinking? Who told us that? who
Yeah.
told us that thing that we were fat or we were ugly or whatever it is. But that takes sitting and really doing some, inner work, I think, or even just being quiet for a second.
Right. But and you also have to stop talking to yourself, because I think we talk to ourselves based on those past,
Okay.
or stop listening to ourselves, I should say, because we listen to those voices. I'm
Yes.
bad. He was right. I'm no good. And instead start talking to ourselves like what you said, you did
Yeah.
a great job today. Go look in the mirror and do.
Yes.
Mel Robbins is great with doing that. Do the high
The high
five.
five.
Go in and
Yes.
give yourself a high five and tell yourself how great you are. In the beginning, it might be difficult to do because
Right.
you don't believe it. But if you continue to do that and give yourself that positive self-talk that you didn't get from somebody else,
Yes.
you'll start noticing that those things change, right?
Right. And just because someone says it, and this took a long time for me to get there, but
Mm,
just because someone says it about us doesn't mean it's true. Right. And that's
right.
sort of what we were talking about before. But I spent a lot of years going, well, if they say I'm difficult, I must be difficult.
Mhm.
If they say I'm whatever, I must be that, because they're pointing it out. And, I'm very trusting. And, I will trust you until you burn me. And then you got to win my trust back. But I always would say I'm gullible. But I just believe that I'm a trusting, compassionate person. But
Well,
now learned to set boundaries. Yeah.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say, I think we want to trust the people that say they love us or that
Yes.
we
Right.
love. So,
Right.
I think same thing with, as a kid, if your parent says you're
Yeah.
fat or whatever
Right.
they might say to you,
Yeah.
maybe not. I'll have to say, my dad used to call me his baby elephant. And I
Yeah.
don't think he ever meant anything by that, but I
But
was
you're,
a
yeah.
bigger girl, but I took that. I think later came, that I
I'm a
was fat.
baby elephant. Yes, exactly. No, I totally remember my dad commenting on my weight. And I know that deep down, he probably wanted me to lose weight and not whatever he had in mind. Right. But all it did was like shame me and make me feel bad. And I grew up with a mom that was always on a diet because that was the culture,
Mine too.
all the time. And so nothing was ever good enough. When I look back at pictures, even like of my wedding day, I'm like, I was so fat. I would pay money to be that fat again. I told this story on my other podcast with my sister, but I have to tell this story. My sister's daughter, she has like an adoptive daughter, that she just took, anyway, it's her, we'll call her adoptive daughter. So she's like as skinny as a rail, like she's this tiny little girl. And so I had my wedding dress and I'm like, what am I going to do with this wedding dress? And she loves that kind of stuff. Like she'll totally go to the Goodwill and buy a gown and go wear it to the movies. Like she's so cute. Right. And I don't even know how old she is. I don't know, 20 or something. And so I was like, well, do you want my wedding dress? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes. So I asked my sister, she sent me a picture of her in it. And I asked my sister, I said, so I want to know, when you zipped it, like, I want to know how it fit her. Cause I want to envision, right? Like what size was I in comparison to Heather, who's putting on this dress? She goes, I almost couldn't zip it. And my niece is this tiny little thing. And I thought I was so fat because
Yeah.
of the voices that I had in my head. And the low self-esteem and all that. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Right.
So
No, I think a lot of people, maybe I would say more so women,
yes.
um, believe those things. And I don't think that in most cases our parents are doing things to try to hurt
Yeah. Yeah.
us. At least my parents didn't. I think they were
No.
doing that just trying
Yeah.
to
Mine either. Yeah.
protect. But you believe
Yes.
what the people that love you
Right.
say to you.
Right. Exactly. We do. And
And we don't have to.
we
We're
don't.
grown-ups now. We don't have to believe what that
What? Are you
15-year-old.
sure? Well, okay, so this is true. And this, I mean, literally, I think we should just say it, that you do not have to continue believing what people have said about you. You don't have to.
No, not at all.
If you sit there and you don't even know, do I really believe that I'm a terrible person or that I'm fat or I'm ugly or whatever it is that you're thinking in your head? Or is it really someone else's voice? Because we don't have to believe that. We don't have to make a announcement. We just have to, we can just stop believing it.
But I
So,
think you have to stop and think about that.
yes.
Like, okay, is this voice or
Yeah.
whatever, like you said, am I really fat?
Right.
Does And
Right.
if you're happy with the way you are, who cares what anybody else
Yeah.
thinks? Or am I stupid? No. I mean,
Right.
I still have sometimes this thought in my head that because I didn't go to college that I'm
Yes.
uneducated. But I
Mhm.
probably know way more than a lot of people about, I don't know, things I just like to know,
Exactly.
about. So I'm always learning. That doesn't make me stupid or dumb because I didn't go to college.
Right. And that's just societal norms too,
Yeah.
right? That you have to go to college and then marriage and kids and whatever, right? Like who said that that's what we have to do?
Yeah.
And so,
But we believe it.
but we believe it. And so stop it. Okay, so tell me where you're at now. What are you doing with your life?
Well,
And how can people reach out to you if they want to do stuff with you?
um, I'm still working at Trader Joe's part-time, and
Awesome.
I have my journal, and I've actually created a couple of other journals. I don't know, it
Love
just
it.
seems those sorts of things just have
They're
seemed
fun. I love doing
to
it.
oh yeah, it's been, I think that's maybe my creative outlet.
Yeah,
um I'm not didn't really do it to become a millionaire or that sort of thing, but it was
right,
just fun, and it's helped many women.
right. And so
um
you're doing and so your work now is really helping women like we talked about. Let me go back to your bio. I can't get to my okay. Helping women reigniting those faded dreams.
right,
You
well, and
do
especially women. It could be any woman, but like us, having to start over and create a
yeah.
new dream. So it's figuring out what is it that you like, what do you want to do, and go from there so you can start maybe doing a podcast or going to Paris like Laura.
Right. Right. Or anything really. I mean,
Yeah,
if someone is feeling stuck just wherever they are, because look, I'm in my 50s. I don't feel like I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm going to go until I can't anymore. And that's how we should be. And look, we have such life experience. It's like,
right.
I'm going to take all this knowledge. Sometimes when I'm talking to like these young kids, I'm like, I feel old, but then I go, no, I have so much knowledge. I've
Right.
lived a life. Like I could be done right now. I have lived a life, but I'm not going to. I'm not done.
But still, I mean, if you live to be 80, 90 years old,
Yeah.
why give up for 30 years, 40 years?
Right.
You're
Exactly.
not too old to go after, maybe you're an empty nester and now you don't know, you want to stay married, but that doesn't mean, even if you're married,
Yes.
doesn't mean you can't pursue
Yes.
dreams of your own.
And that's a good point because many people do become empty nesters and then they say, especially like, us who stayed at home, we did a lot of stuff with our kids, and then you go, okay, now what? My kids are grown and gone.
Hmm.
And now what? What do I do? What
Right.
are my dreams? And now it's time you could help them, realize some dreams.
True. That's true. So, I mean,
No, you can't.
yes, you can. You can find me on Instagram.
Okay.
It's
And
under,
we'll put all the stuff in the
okay,
show notes
right.
so everybody can
Um,
grab it. Yeah.
I'm in the process of creating a mini course. It's just a small course to kind of get you started to, start dreaming, creating
Mm,
your future self.
awesome.
Who do you want to be?
Yep.
So that should be finished
Pretty soon.
um, pretty soon. We might, by the
Now that
time
we're
this is,
announcing it.
yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm so proud of you. Angie, thank you for being here and sharing your story. And
Thank you.
I'm so glad
I'm
you're
just laughing because I'm thinking, oh my God, if really, if this hadn't
yeah,
happened to both of us,
yeah.
we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
No, isn't it funny?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think a lot of people think like you heal, like this is the vibe I'm getting. Or maybe it's like discernment from God or something that I'm supposed to heal and then start being quiet about it. I'm not going to because it was too many years of what, you know, uh, narcissism is microaggressions, right? Every single day. And I did 33 years. So that's 12,000 days. I did the math. And it's 12,000 days of microaggressions. And so imagine that. And that's why they say it's called the death of 1,000 cuts. I'm sorry, the death of 10,000 cuts or something like that. And I don't want to stop. I want to share all this knowledge with everybody. And it's so funny. Like you and I have gotten closer over this, and this is why we gotten closer. Great. This is it, you
I
know,
think
but
if it's not being talked about,
yes,
then it's like me. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to
right.
tell people what he did. I didn't,
Yeah,
I took on the responsibility that it was my fault because how
that's it.
stupid could I be because I stayed for all those years and,
Oh gosh, I
you know,
struggled with that.
but if you don't talk about it, people are not going to, what do I want to say? It's not going to come out of them either.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and it doesn't mean, and we're not saying like everybody get out of your marriage. We're not saying that.
no, 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 not at all.
No, we're not. I never have done that. I've talked to friends who are like, what about this? And I'm like, I'm not making any decisions for you about your marriage. Like, absolutely not. What I know is I wish I would have known about some of these things because I feel like it broke me. And so I'm not interested in living broken anymore. And I don't want anyone else to live broken for one more day because people are walking around like me. I was walking around basically a dead person. I was a zombie. I was basically dead inside and just surviving day to day, going, when will this get better? I hope it gets better. Maybe it'll get better, you know, and because they give you that, they throw you that breadcrumb. And then if you're living off of breadcrumbs, one day you're going to realize you're starving.
Or you're allergic to wheat.
You're allergic to wheat. And you
And I
don't.
think, what do they say? Your mess becomes your message,
Yes. Yeah.
and you have, I think it helps other women.
Yes.
Um,
I think
and
so.
maybe, I don't know, maybe it will help other men, but I'm not kind of
Yeah.
in that space. But
Right.
if you talk about the stuff that you've gone through, other
Yeah.
people are like, oh, well, I'm going through that, or I
Yeah.
went through that, and this is
Yeah.
what this person did. Maybe that would
Right. And that's the
help
thing is
me.
for me is like what helps because like what helped you might help me or might help another person. You know, we don't have to all look the same, even though narcissists like really read out of the same handbook for God's sakes, and they all seem to have the same story and bullshit.
Right.
It's we are all healing differently, but I think the biggest thing that I want people to understand is that you deserve to heal. It was not your fault
Mhm.
and you are worthy of love and a life where you are not miserable. And
Yes.
it took a long time for me to get there. I didn't think I was worthy of a life where I wasn't going to be miserable. I just thought this was it.
Well,
I'm
you're
married.
healing way quicker than I did.
I can't stand his stupid fucking face. So I really want
Well,
to
I
continue
can
healing.
actually be in the same room with him and I can talk to him and have conversation. And later I'm like, thank God.
I am, you
Don't
know
with him
what?
anymore. And I don't have to put up with his bullshit.
I'm so proud of you. And I'm so glad that you said that because I think people do want to know that. Look, I had a really, oh, and we were talking about it earlier and I forgot to mention it, but I actually had a moment the other day where I was thinking about him for something and I didn't have any kind of like, I was very like apathetic almost, like it didn't bother me at all. And I was like, hey,
That's a good
progress.
sign.
It was
When
such a good sign.
those little things don't bother you,
Yes.
then
And
you know
it's hard because people say like, well, how long did it take you before you felt better? And I'm like, I'll let you know, you know, it's not easy
And it's
because
different for everybody.
different for everybody.
Like I
It
said,
really,
I mean, I'm not with you all the time, but
yeah.
you seem to have, I don't want to say transition, but you're healing. I feel like you're healing way quicker than I did, in
So
certain
that's
things. But it's,
definitely my style. I do have really bad days. I actually had a few days ago, I was having a, bunch of bad days. But I felt like, okay, after I got over the bad day, I think what happened was that God does that to me. He'll make me almost like, okay, not saying he's making me depressed, but I got depressed and I felt like you need to rest. Like you're not recording any podcast. You don't need to do anything. Go rest. And so I was resting and then I had to drive across town for something. And that's when I had that quiet time where I was like, just like talking to God and like kind of like dreaming and stuff. And he was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted you to just stop and rest your brain for a second because I'm always going because, but then that becomes what is it?
it could become a way to avoid.
That's it. That's it. Yes. And so I'm not saying that he's like making me depressed, but I think he's pointing out, hey, you're feeling bad today. Go ahead and rest and give yourself a break.
And you'll have good days and you'll have bad days. But for me, as time went on, I started having fewer bad days
Yes.
and more good days.
That's
And
awesome.
I could come out of the depression,
Yeah.
and the grieving much quicker.
That's
And I
awesome.
said, everybody is different. So don't think that you have to be over it in 2 months, like, okay, you're just move on. It
Right.
doesn't
It doesn't
happen
work
that
that
way.
way.
You have the
And
death of a parent or somebody, you don't just like get over
no.
it in a month.
And I really heard that, moving forward, right? Though, yeah, I don't know. I don't know because like moving forward in grief, like with my mom or something like that, it's like moving forward. Yeah, I take her memory with me, but
Mhm.
I don't want to take my memory with me of him. Okay.
Right. But I think the moving forward too can be, what's a step that you can take today that's going to make you feel better?
Yes.
What is your body saying? Okay, the next inspired action could be go take a nap, go get some water.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be anything grand and it doesn't have,
Yes.
get over it. Listen to your body. What's
That's
one little thing
perfect.
you can do? I think for me, that's moving forward. And it does, like I
That's
said, it doesn't have to
perfect.
be something big, but what is your body telling you? Stop for an hour, go read a book or call a
Yeah.
friend.
Right. Or
And
just
that's moving forward to me.
well, it's true. And that's clearly what happened to me the other day. Hold on. The garage is shutting. Well, we're finishing up anyway and just getting to the end, but we'll pause this and take all this out. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And we're going to put everything into the show notes. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Of course.
I'm glad we can laugh about it now.
I know. That's what healing sounds like, people.
Right?
And so if any of this resonated with you, please go over to social media on Instagram and Facebook to find a picture of Angie for her episode, and you can comment on it. That's right. You can comment on it. And then soon after the podcast episode comes out, you'll be able to go watch us on YouTube, unedited. That's how we do it. And I'm not going to do that. And don't have time for that. But thank you so much again for being here. And I really appreciate you.
And thank you. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I think you're going to inspire a lot of
I
women.
hope so. Thank you so much. All
Thanks,
right,
Angie.
guys, we'll talk to you next time. All right, don't leave me.